So up next is Communist China and the Free World's Future. So this is something that I pulled up that is a speech by Mike Pompeo. Um, and it's, of course, he's in the Department of State. And so I don't even know how to begin this. It just really pained me to hear some of the things that he was saying, and to hear the parallels between things that Mike Pompeo was saying about communist China that you could say very easily about capitalist America, right? So it's very, but the double speak and the Orwellian flip flops in this were just, I mean, the amount of them was absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm just gonna start reading. So Mike Pompeo says this is just excerpts from his speech. So we imagined engagement with China would produce a future with bright promise of comity and cooperation. But today, we're all still wearing masks and watching the pandemic's body count rise because the CCP failed in its promises to the world. We're reading every morning new headlines of repression in Hong Kong and Xinjiang. We're seeing staggering statistics of Chinese trade abuses that cost American jobs and strike enormous blows to the economies all across America, including here in Southern California. And we're watching a Chinese military that grows stronger and stronger and indeed more menacing. You could say all of those things, almost all of those things, minus obviously the pandemic. I don't know when the last time the United States spread a pandemic around the earth, other than their military. But you could say all of these things about the United States, right?
I mean, you get kind of the gas situation. I mean, it's deformed kids in Iraq because they like drop, they give the gas there. It's a bunch of like
There's so much stuff.
there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's just terrible to see this. It cost American jobs. America cost Americans American jobs.
I know, right?
It's
All these
it's the
these jobs are all outsourced. Seems like they cost us the jobs. I'm like,
right.
we took the job. The factories are all in China, guys. That was a bad idea. They
Yeah, I
took the
mean,
they took the jobs. Like you gave. Anyway,
but it's because of, well, to your point, it's because of NAFTA, and then eventually it was also going to be because of the TPP that a lot of the manufacturing sector in this country was gutted because of NAFTA in the 90s.
yeah.
So to just turn foot and blame it on China is a very strange thing to do when you kind of did it to yourselves. And Mike Pompeo, you're going to find out in the next slide, he was around in the 1990s. He wasn't born yesterday. Mike
I
Pompeo, by the
really
way.
hoped he was. Just so we can skip all the other bad things this guy was involved in.
So, moving on, um,
It's like
this
it would
is
make a
this
lot
is
more sense. They're all 10-year-olds. I don't know any better. Anyway, go ahead.
so Mike Pompeo continues, as Ambassador O'Brien explained so well. I have no idea who that is. We have to keep in mind that the CCP regime is a Marxist-Leninist regime. Jesus Christ. General Secretary, you want to denounce anything? Just call it a Marxist, a Leninist, a socialist, a communist, or anti-American, or a terrorist. Then you have like you have your you have your what's it called? Your anti-democracy bingo, or whatever, your propaganda bingo, whatever you want to call it.
That's a very interesting Marxist Leninist.
It's just that we're just gonna add everything that
A little
sounds
bit.
bad to people.
Make,
I
anyway,
don't disagree that Lenin was bad. I think
I
he was,
know,
of
like
course, yeah, Stalin and Lenin were both horrible people. So was Hitler. He was also a horrible person. But just because, if I tell people tomorrow that I'm an archaeologist and then I go murder people, does that make me a good or a bad person, Isam?
I don't know. I'd have to look at your archaeology. No, I'm just kidding. I'm making a bad person, dude.
You sound
Yeah,
like a
how many things
socialist,
did you uncover
Isam.
while you were killing people?
Oh, you're starting to sound like a Marxist Leninist, Isam. So I think you might have to get that checked out. So General Secretary Xi Jinping is a true believer in a bankrupt totalitarian ideology. It's just more it's more douchery. I don't know what they said the same thing about Libya. Um,
Oh,
it was just like he's always an authoritarian. Oh, let's just continue. It's the
what is he,
ideology. It's this ideology
totalitarian?
that sorry.
Is he a Marxist, Leninist, totalitarian?
Yeah, is it's bankrupt also.
Yeah.
And
Oh, he's bankrupt too. Yeah.
it's bankrupt also. They're the second largest economy in the world and they're bankrupt. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to take out one of these headphones. Just keep slipping out. Can you say something real quick?
Yeah. I'm talking. Totally talking.
Perfect. Okay. Um, it's this ideology. It's this ideology that informs his decades-long desire for global hegemony of Chinese communism. America can no longer ignore the fundamental political and ideological differences between our countries, just as the CCP
Trying to think.
has
One,
never
two,
ignored
three,
them.
four different types of government. I don't know. Those like characters of governments. I'm not even sure they're real.
Oh my god,
It doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't make any
Um,
sense to me, or and it shouldn't. This shouldn't. None of this should make
oh no.
sense. But some people really eat this up, and he's saying it to people that are like applauding him in the video. Luckily, there would just happen to be an excerpt underneath, so I didn't have to do any
Great.
kind of video editing. I could just grab these and read it myself. Anyway, my experience in the House Intelligence Committee and then as director of the Central Intelligence Agency, an agency that never lies. They never lie, Issam, the CIA. And my now 2+ years as America's Secretary of State have led me to this central understanding that the only way to truly change communist China is to act not on the basis of what Chinese leaders say, but how they behave. You could say the same thing about America.
I mean, the level of hypocrisy here is just like I don't know how these people sleep. Like on the side or on the like I don't know. Like, they must have all have my pillows and like they must all like they would all be having that sleep apnea. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far. Am I going too far? The tubes or the sleep apnea. Like it's impossible to like lie this much and just I guess it is. It's possible. You can be like a complete dirtbag. Anyway, that's none of that is very constructive.
Dude, they're just complete sociopaths. I mean, that's
Yes,
like really
that's
what it comes down to. I wish it was anything different, but it's really not. So anyway, um, and you can see American policy responding to this conclusion. President Reagan said that he dealt with the Soviet Union on the basis of trust but verify. When it comes to the CCP, I say we must distrust and verify. Applause. They even annotated the applause in there. I fucking hate it. We, the freedom-loving nations of the world, must induce China to change, just as President Nixon wanted. We must induce China to change in more creative and assertive ways, because Beijing's actions threaten our people and our prosperity. We're like, so Russia's a problem, China's a problem, Iran's a problem,
This is
Venezuela's a
the Red Scare
problem,
all over again.
Syria's a problem, Pakistan was a problem for a little while,
Middle East
Afghanistan's a problem, Iraq's a problem.
terror.
Sorry?
This is the Red Scare and the terrorist scare, or like the Middle East. I don't know. What do you want to call it?
It's the socialist scare, the communist scare, the terrorist scare. Anything that, but here's the crazy thing, man, is the United States was very happy to use China for decades for their labor. And now they're just like, all right, well, now that your economy is incredibly strong because you have a great manufacturing sector and you're you're basically a capitalist in all the ways except for how you run your government. Now you want to take down China. Yeah, because they're about to overtake you. And you have this whole speech is only was only created out of some sort of overcompensation. And but this is what the United States does all the time. They use these client states to manufacture, to do their bidding, et cetera, et cetera. And then as soon as that country starts to show any sign of progress or any sign of what's it called, rebellion, they go in and they completely destroy the place. Sometimes they don't even need a reason. That's exactly what they did to Iraq.
They did Iraq. They did like every South American country. What they're trying to do now, like what they
Yeah,
tried to do to Venezuela, but they failed pretty hard.
right.
Like that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, we're gonna see that in a little bit.
Also, like it's not like just to, I mean, we have to. I don't know. I have to preface this every time. Like it's not like China's uh, like yeah, that's all that stuff. It's not like China's like super um, progressive or anything like that. Like there's plenty of problems in China, but like
Yeah,
just like then actually none of the problems that he mentioned here are the problems in China, and even like none of them,
I
and
have
even if
friends
they
who
are like we've
continue.
got so many other problems. Like ah, the irony here, the irony is just like oh you could just like 100 million shirts with the irony, just like iron all of them.
I have friends
Anyway,
who lived in China who had a great time while they were out there. I have other friends who have started businesses in China who have like, I mean, it's not like I'm not saying they're the greatest country on the planet,
no, I'm
but
not either. Totally
it's
not.
but what
I'm
is
just
being
saying the
said
U.S. is
here,
pretty
I'm sorry.
U.S. is really bad.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, what I am saying, but what I agree with you on is that a lot of what Mike Pompeo is saying here is not the problems with China that need to be addressed, and yet here we are discussing this Orwellian doublespeak again, as opposed to what the real issues may be. For example, I think it's what are they called, the Uyghur Muslims? Is that correct?
What is it?
The What is the name of the type of
Oh,
Muslims that might be in concentration camps
Uyghur.
in China?
Uyghur.
Uyghur, is that correct?
I
And
think so. We're really
I,
bad.
you know, I have no
Really
idea
bad.
if that's true or not at this point. I still don't know if that's true or not. But even have friends of mine who, who have said that it is true. And I don't know what your take on it is. I don't have a take on it personally because I don't really know and I haven't done enough research on the issue.
Um, I do know there are lots of there's lots of minority Muslims, and they're not brought up as much as the Uyghurs. I mean, we could just do another. I mean, I'm also skeptical about what they're saying. We
Yeah,
could do a whole another segment on just that.
segment on it.
That
We might have to
whole,
do a deep dive on that.
you know.
So, moving along here. I grew up in this is the bread and butter of this whole speech to me, by the way, this paragraph. I grew up and served my time in the army during the Cold War, and if there is one thing I learned, communists almost always lie. Isam, that is a very interesting point. Uh, it's come to my attention. I never realized this before, but capitalists always tell the truth. Isn't that crazy? They just always tell the truth. And God, it's what a weird world we live in where it's so black and white, Communists lie, capitalists tell the truth. The biggest lie. See, the thing is, it has like a truthiness to it because
What
of there are elements to this that may be true. However, the way that it is said in such a black and white way is complete bullshit because it's a very nuanced situation, just like any situation. But whenever these pundits, and Mike Pompeo is nothing more than a pundit with power. That's really the way that I look at him. Is when these people come out and they talk about these things, they always make it sound black and white. And him in particular. And there's video footage of him saying that they trained him how to lie when he was at whatever CIA school that he went to, and that And he said that to applause from the audience. There should be another little applause caption there after he said it, but it's true. And
This is
so
just
I don't. How do
such
people trust that
McCarthy.
guy? Sorry,
This is such McCarthy bullshit. It's just like,
it's more
I
McCarthyism.
mean,
That's actually a
fine.
better way of expressing it.
It's such BS. It's I mean, uh, it's just physically exhausting to watch him and then to watch him have a speech, to
Yeah.
know what he represents. It's just like, I don't know. I don't want to describe the bodily functions that happen. It's not definitely need a doctor. I'm glad you read this off. You didn't see the speech. Good for you. Good for your health.
It's I like watched some of it and then I like started reading some of it and I was just like, this person is this person's at like one of the helms of our country. You know, he gets to make
He has
decisions.
power. He's like the fucking
Yeah,
uh,
it's crazy.
to be the Psy show. He
Yeah,
just sigh all the time.
just sigh the whole time. Just be like pouting, just frown the whole time. You're like, this happened. Um, the biggest lie that they tell is to think they speak for 1.4 billion people who are surveilled, oppressed, and scared to speak out. Quite the contrary. The CCP fears the Chinese people's honest opinions more than any foe, and save for losing their own grip on power, they have no reason to. There might have just been a mess up.
It's okay.
Just think how much better off the world would be. Now this is also very delicious. And I'll jump into it in a second. Just think how much better off the world would be, not to mention the people inside of China, if we had been able to hear from the doctors in Wuhan and they'd been allowed to raise the alarm about the outbreak of a new and novel virus. All right.
Can you believe that? What are
I
you gonna say? It's just phenomenal. This
So here's where it's phenomenal for me is it's more of this like the United States sees a problem and they're like we need to help those people, and then the United States, the people of the United States are like, yeah, let's help those people. Those people are suffering. And then they send over their military or whatever. They send over their military or their sanctions or it's whatever you want to call it, siege warfare. And then they end up destroying those people. They just completely demolish those people. And the people of the United States are like, yeah. And it's really insane to me that it's just happening over and over again.
I mean, the people of the United States. Let's. I think.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah.
I totally understand where you're coming from, but continue. I want to hear it anyway.
I wanted to pivot, but
You want to
like
pivot?
we can hear. Are you gonna hear it? Like the people of the United States. How many people actually represent the people who actually want to go any war anymore? I don't know. I should. I don't know. But like after Iraq, after Iraq, after 9/11, not even after 9/11, after the first Iraq war.
Right.
I mean, who wants to stand after Vietnam? After like, who wants to deal with this stuff?
I
Why?
just don't
Why
I
you?
just don't know how people continue to get fooled by it. But
But like, it's obviously just like. I mean, at this point, it's just like the people in power do not represent us, and
right.
just like the lies are just so getting worse and worse. Like they're not even trying anymore. Like, what is this speech?
This is so ridiculous. You have to be a
Like this guy
moron.
just blamed China for the coronavirus. I still don't
Right.
understand why there was an article about Reuters with the March 2019 sewage in Barcelona. You know about that? We talked about that before.
No, I haven't talked about that with you.
There's a Reuters article. I'm like, why is this not? Why was this not like a big deal? I don't understand. They were thinking, so they were looking at traces of sewage in Spain, in Barcelona, I believe specifically, yes. And in March of 2019, they were looking at old samples recently, and they found out that one of the old samples from March 2019 has the coronavirus in it. I'm just like, okay,
Wow.
like Exactly. How?
How? Of the
How?
current coronavirus?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah. As Reuters, and I was like, okay, like, oh, we just like that's it. Like, we're not talking about it anymore. Like, that's the Reuters article. There's like a USA Today came out, and they were like, oh, samples get mixed up all the time. It could be like take the coronavirus sample and like put it in the sewage water, and then like, yeah, that's totally what happened. And it's just like,
Oh my god. Yeah, that
I don't
doesn't
know,
just
man.
happen.
This is like, this sounds like a big deal. And just like, I'm not saying like this is a. I'm not saying like everything that happened is wrong or whatever. Like all these reports out of China, like obviously coronavirus was hit hard in China and stuff. I'm just saying like, why is that not a big deal? And we're talking like this guy's like obviously talking very politically that they want to attack China and they're gonna
Yeah. Right.
totally blame the
Right.
deaths on China as opposed to
Mhm.
whatever they're doing here,
That's
etc.
basically
Blah
what
blah
they're
blah.
doing. This is the same thing as Donald Trump saying it's a Chinese virus. Like it's just galvanizing his population to want to go after China. And you also have many people on the left who, and that's the problem for me, is that they've set this up in such a way that China kind of slips in as the bad guy to a lot of people. But they're a sovereign nation and they're taking advantage of the economic situation that was lent to them by the United States, largely by the United States. And now, as a result of that, the United States wants to take some of that power back. And what are they going to do? They're going to try and topple China. So I am not very interested to to see what happens here, because it's 1.4 billion people. I know that the United States has the largest military might and et cetera, whatever in the world, but this is not a
Which is
war
like
that I want to see.
it's
But most
crazy.
like,
They're like centered. They got bases in South Korea. They got bases in Japan. They got bases like in the islands. There's
who
in
are you talking
Europe. They
about?
got bases like U.S.
You're talking
Like
about the U.S. Yeah, they have bases everywhere. They have over 1,000 bases across and those are just the ones we know about.
you know.
I mean, I think it was like Rand Paul found out that U.S. service member, or Lindsey Graham, excuse me, I think found out that service members had died in like Sudan a few years ago, and he was like, "Why are people in Sudan?" Like, there's just a lot of weird stuff going on. Yeah,
Are we still bombing 7 different countries, by the way?
it's 7 countries, and now
Yeah.
we're gonna find out in a second. Um, so I'm gonna let's we'll wrap this one up right here, and we'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah.